This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com and Equities.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world. With your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, I am super excited to have this gentleman on my show. You know, I talk about management, how to look for great management. Not only do they have great management, but they have some world-class assets, and we're going to talk about today. They also have a world-class team that they got back from Newmont Exploring team that joined them. We're talking Auryn Resources, Inc. You can find them on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol AUG. You can find them on the TSX up there in Toronto under the same ticker symbol, AUG. And with us today is the executive chairman, Ivan Bebek. Ivan, welcome back to the show. You were on my show back in October.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be back at a very exciting time for us.
You know, recently Auryn put out some really high-grade copper numbers associated with a new target called Milpac at your Sombrero project in Peru. Can you talk about that and what is its significance?
Yeah, so Sombrero is a massive project for us. It's globally probably one of the biggest swings you can take to find a major mine that would be globally significant. And Milpac is just one more addition to some spectacular numbers. But when you see copper grading above 1% or higher, and at Milpac it goes up to 8.5% roughly, you know, you pay attention. And in the area that we found this, it demonstrates another center. Milpac may be the potential center of another major deposit in Peru. And when I say major deposits, you know, we've drawn some comparisons to the Sombrero main project, 12 kilometers north of the Milpac target. And we've shown it in our press releases, you know, being same rocks, same age of rocks, same type of mineralization as a mine next door called Las Bambas, which is, you know, about 1.7 billion tons of 0.6 copper. What does that mean in the gold world? That's about 50 million ounce gold deposit, which is outstanding. That's the Sombrero main deposit that we're going to go, our target that we're going to go drill this summer. So Milpac is another center. And when I say center, I'm talking about a potential flagship discovery deposit that will complement the big district that we have just 12 kilometers away. So spectacular copper numbers. You're not finding these anywhere on the globe as of lately, not with big major structures that are near them or going right through them. So really exciting for us.
As for my listeners, I really want you to take a look at this company. I believe it's one of the greatest companies that we've had on our show in years. Very, very underpriced. This is my personal opinion. Stock price is at 94 cents. It's probably undervalued greatly. That being said, you guys have done a mandate after some major discoveries. You've looked at some, whether it be Canada or Peru. Investors can go ahead and take a look at that. But how do you look at the Sombrero project compared to the Committee Bay project? What's the difference in those two?
So Committee Bay is a 300-kilometer, about a 220-mile long greenstone belt. And what that is when we say greenstone belt, you know, it's a belt that could host potential major gold deposits. The last major mine found in the last decade is right next to Committee Bay. It's called Amaruq. It was found by Agnico Eagle, company who bought our last company in 2014. They found about 6.5 million ounce gold deposit. And that's the last mine found in the last decade. So when you look at Committee Bay, you see 220 miles of real estate with gold along the whole trend. You know, the real challenge there is that there's dirt on top of the rocks. So there's covered rocks. You can't see the rock sticking out of the surface, and that's why major mines haven't been found there yet. So the potential of Committee Bay is to find 5, 10, 20 million ounces over the next 3 or 4 years, but because the rocks are covered, it's really, really challenging, and we've been at it for 4 years. We're getting really close. We think this summer we're going to get into it finally, but what you hear there, Committee Bay, is tough. It's not easy. The rocks are covered. You have a 2.5-month season each year to go drill it in the summer. Sombrero is now what I'm categorizing, and so is the rest of our technical team from Newmont, is the best thing I've seen in my career. You know, that's the last 20 years of the exploration business, not just as an executive, also as an investor in other assets and other companies. And to make money in this business, you'll have to go look for the major deposits. You know, it's just as much work to find a 2-3 million ounce mine as it is to go find a 20, 30, or 50 million ounce mine. So if you can be lucky enough, as we have been, to acquire one of these spectacular projects like Sombrero, To me, it's the best thing I've seen and probably the best shot I'll get it to take. And what's different about Committee Bay is that a lot of it's exposed at surface. We're sampling up to 200 grams gold on surface. We're sampling up to 18% copper. Those are outliers, meaning that the whole system's not going to be that rich. But when you see grades that high, it tells you there's a very strong system producing copper and gold. And then the layer that came out for us last summer was these massive structures, about 8 kilometers long, of an area that we're going to drill test this summer. So now you have scale that goes with grade. And we're not going to average those grades. We're going to look for something very similar to Las Bambas, 1 to 2 billion tons, 0.6 to 1% copper gold equivalent. Again, that would be like a 50 million ounce gold discovery. So it's a lot easier than Committee Bay. You can work on it for 12 months of the year. You talked about our share price being at a discount. A big reason for that is it took us 2 years to get access to Sombrero. We had to take our time with the communities in Peru because we don't want to rush that. We want long-term, pristine community relations, and that's what we've achieved. So now we're in the drill permitting phase. We expect the drill to turn the next 5 months, probably May or June. We'll see the first drills turn. And we've caught the attention to some of the biggest base metal and gold companies in the world with this target. And so really exciting times, biggest swing that I've taken in my career. I've had some big hits. We found a 5 million ounce gold mine in Ghana on my first company with the rest of my team. And so this is it. This is the best shot I'm going to take.
I want my listeners to understand you guys are an exploration company, that you go out and find the great discoveries. Then you sell the properties, which I think every junior mining company should do. They should never try to bring it up themselves. That being said, give my listeners a little bit. What's the average gold mine company brings out of, say, a ton of ore? Isn't it like 1 or 2 ounces? I heard you guys have one that you're bringing up around 30 to 32 ounces per ton. Is that correct?
Well, your grams. Your grams, not ounces.
Yes, I mean grams.
Yeah, so a lot of them are 1 to 2 grams. If you look at where these things are, and you touched on a very important thing, finding a gold deposit is not easy, and no one's been finding them. There's one mine found in the last decade of significance that's north of 3 or 4 million ounces, right? And when you look at what we're doing in Committee Bay, the average grade is about 8 grams per ton, and that's spectacular in terms of high grade. When I tell you that there's 200 grams per ton is the high grade sample at Sombrero, if you take the average of a lot of gold that's been sampled there, it's about 3 or 4 grams per ton on average. So back to your point about the average grade you see globally on gold is around a gram, 1.2 grams. We're talking multi-gram gold down at Sombrero. We're talking really high-grade gold up at Committee Bay. What we're talking about there is profitability. And then the next thing I'll point out is, and you've outlabeled us as an exploration company, and that's most certainly what we are. It's about finding a new discovery, a maiden discovery. Our first company, we found 5 million ounces. The stock went from 49 cents to $9 per share. From basically a couple $1 million market cap up to about almost $900 million market cap, right? And this is what happens when you find something new. And there's a big difference between an existing deposit that gets bigger, that's lower risk, so the reward is not as big as you would see on finding something new. Sombrero's never, ever seen a drill ever before us. And it was largely overlooked by a lot of people because of where it was situated. And there was a bit of cover, and people never gave it the time of day, and it didn't fit the mold that everybody was used to. We got there first. A lot of major copper and gold companies, some of the biggest ones in the world, are staking ground all around us. But we've gotten the most and the best real estate that we could possibly get, by sampling the surface to put together something that could be, as dramatic as a potential 50 million ounce gold discovery.
Ivan, going after major discoveries is not an easy task. You got to send an exploration team out, cover a lot of ground all over the world. That being said, what do you want my listeners to take away from this interview?
So the two things. One is there's 2 challenges you get. Challenges of learning about the science of the rocks, where the deposit can occur. The more time a company spends with really smart people, as we've done, now I'm referring to Committee Bay, to go look for that major deposit. And each time, if you get closer and closer, then you're on the edge of it. And I would say for all your listeners that we're on the edge of a revolutionary major discovery at Committee Bay. After 4 years of learning about those rocks and sampling the surface, we feel we've hit the edge of the system last summer, and we're likely going to go for it again this summer and hit the big one. But the one thing that I lose sleep on, and the rest of the company is losing sleep on, all the geologists and everything else, it's Sombrero. And it's the size of the potential at Sombrero. It's going to take us probably about 2 years to test about 5 major centers where there could be standalone massive deposits. And so it's going to be to start this summer. We'll be drilling continuously for 2 years and give investors a chance to be part of one of the world's biggest gold discoveries or gold copper discoveries in the last decade. And that's really what you have to think about when you hear this interview, is that this is a shot in northern Canada as well as in Peru to be part of one of the world's biggest discoveries that have happened in the last 10 years.
The executive chairman's been my guest today, Ivan Bebek. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on my show. You're always welcome to come back, and I wish you nothing but continued success. As for my listeners, I'm telling you right now, the management's a winning team. They got world-class assets. They got a world-class team out there on looking for great projects and drilling and everything. It's a winner. This is my personal opinion. Ivan, thank you so much for your time. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire, LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.